What if I told you your life could change in one day, but not in the way you imagine? Most people try to change their lives in the completely wrong way, because they set fake goals to keep up with. Others view change as mere slogans about discipline and productivity, and then quit after 2 weeks. If you are ashamed of the life you're living, and sick of the routine that steals your day, listen to me closely. We are not here to set ridiculous goals. Nor are we here to fool ourselves with empty motivational words. The anger you feel inside about your current situation is the most powerful fuel you could have if you know how to use it right. Whether you want to start your own project, transform your physique, or take the risk and live a life with real meaning, without quitting after 2 weeks. In this video, we won't waste our time on empty motivational talk. I will show you how just one day, if used the right way, can reshape the way you think and set your life on a different path for years to come. But before we start, grab a pen and paper and shut off all distractions. Point 1, you are not where you want to be, because you are not the person who will get there. The first practical step in this day of change is to face the hard truth. You are not where you wish to be, because you are not the person who can live in that place. Most people set superficial goals to excite themselves and stress their nerves for the first 2 weeks, then return to square one with ease. Do you know why? Because they were trying to build a grand palace on foundations of rotten wood. The rule here is clear. If you want a certain result, you must adopt the identity of the person who achieves that result, long before you actually attain it. Let's take a simple example. Think of a bodybuilder or a successful entrepreneur. Do these people suffer every day to stay committed? The shocking truth is that they can't imagine living any other way. The bodybuilder is the one who has to struggle and fight if they want to eat unhealthy food. And the CEO is the one who has to fight themselves fiercely just to stay in bed. When you truly change from within, all your old habits fall away on their own, because you now have a deep awareness of the type of life that aligns with the result of those actions. But ask yourself a simple question now. What is the sentence you constantly repeat about yourself? Do you say, "I am lazy"? "I cannot stay committed"? "I always start"? Then stop. If you repeat these sentences every day, don't be surprised when your mind acts as if they are the truth, because humans often act in accordance with their identity, not their wishes. That is why before you change your schedule, habits and goals, first change your answer to one question. Who is the person I want to be? Because the answer to this question will determine everything that follows. But here a bigger and more dangerous problem emerges. What if you are convinced that you want success, while a hidden part of your mind doesn't want it at all? This is what we will talk about in the next step. Point 2, you are not where you want to be, because you don't truly want to be there. Alfred Adler once said a great sentence: "Trust-only movement life happens at the level of events, not at the level of words." Trust movement. When you sit and watch social media for 3 hours, you are not actually wasting time in vain. In a way, you are trying to burn time to escape facing a heavy responsibility waiting for you. Sometimes you pursue destructive goals, but you justify them in socially acceptable ways, so you don't appear as a failure. Let me ask you a question that might seem provocative. If you really want success, why do you keep repeating the same habits that keep you in place? Why do you procrastinate? Why do you run away? Why do you know what you should do and then not do it? The ready-made answer for most people is, "I am lazy, I am undisciplined." But most of the time, this is not the truth. Often, procrastination is a way to escape a feeling you don't want to face. Perhaps you fear failure, or perhaps you fear success itself and the responsibilities it might impose on you, and perhaps you fear putting in all you have, only to discover that the result is not as you had wished for. In that case, procrastination becomes a way to protect your image in front of yourself. Because you can always say, "If I had started seriously, I would have succeeded." And thus hope remains alive without ever testing the truth. Imagine a student who puts off studying until the final night. If he fails, he will say the problem is that I didn't study, and he won't have to face the harder question: what if I studied with all my effort and still didn't succeed? Sometimes procrastination is less painful than facing that possibility, so he chooses to stay in the waiting zone, a painful zone but a familiar one, which is why it seems safe. For this reason, it is not enough to ask yourself what I want. Instead, also ask, what do I gain by staying as I am? This question may be uncomfortable, but it reveals the truth. Perhaps you gain comfort, or a ready-made excuse, or the sympathy of others, or you avoid facing an old fear that has lived inside you for years. In short, real change will not happen by adjusting your superficial actions, but when you discover your hidden goals and face your true fear of being in a better place. Point 3. You are not where you want to be because you are afraid of being there. The important thing you must remember is that it doesn't care at all how you thought of the idea or where it came from. If you accepted a certain idea, whether from yourself, your teachers, your parents, your friends, or advertisement, and you believed it and became fully convinced that it is an absolute truth, it will have the same power of hypnosis over you. You were not born knowing who you are. All you knew in your childhood was that you needed safety. And that is why you began to observe the world around you. You learned what made you praised and what made you punished. Gradually you began to build an image of yourself. Perhaps you were told you were smart or mischievous, or a failure at school or shy. In the beginning, these were just words, but with repetition, they turned into part of your identity. The problem is that the mind does not like to change its identity, even if it is painful, because it gives it a sense of stability. This is why you find some people defending habits that harm them, and they defend ideas that have been proven wrong. Not because the evidence is weak, but because changing the idea means changing part of their identity, and the mind resists that strongly. That is why when someone hears criticism of an idea they have believed in for years, they may get angry. They may get angry as if they were subjected to a personal attack, because their mind does not always distinguish between a threat to the idea and a threat to the person themselves. The same thing happens when you tell yourself, "I am a failure." Every new experience will be processed by your mind in a way that confirms this sentence. If you make a mistake once, it will say, "Didn't I tell you?" And if you succeed, it will consider it just a coincidence. Thus your identity becomes a lens through which you see the world, not the world as it is. Therefore, if you want to change, it is not enough to add a new habit. You must review the stories you tell yourself every day. Are they real? Or are they just words you heard years ago and then believed? You might have thought you were antisocial, but the truth is you never had the chance to learn. You might have believed you couldn't succeed, while all that happened is that you failed once, and then turned that experience into a permanent definition of yourself. Here freedom begins, when you realize that your identity is not a fixed thing, but a story capable of being rewritten. But if our identity is capable of change, why do some people change while others remain stuck in the same place for years? To answer this question, we must understand how the mind itself evolves, and how a human moves from one way of thinking to another, more mature and conscious one. And this is what we will talk about in the next part. The fourth point: the life that you want lies within a certain level of the mind. The human mind evolves through clear and specific stages over time. When you are first born, you are like a small sponge designed to absorb. You absorb any beliefs that come your way to feel accepted and safe. And if you are not conscious and careful, the mind will harden and fossilize at a certain stage, and you will find it impossible to live a life of true meaning. Let me tell you a truth that might seem innocent at first. You do not see the world as it is, but you see it in the way your current level of consciousness allows. And for this reason, two people may face the exact same problem, but each one of them sees it differently. One sees an obstacle and the other sees an opportunity. What is the difference between them? It is not the circumstances, but the way of thinking over time. The human mind evolves not suddenly, but in stages. And in each stage, its way of understanding life itself and the people around it changes. Note that the goal is not to reach a specific stage, nor to categorize yourself. The goal is not to stop growing. Because the most dangerous moment in a human's life is the moment they think they are complete. A person who is constantly evolving also changes their goals, their habits, and their way of making decisions. That is why if you feel your life is at a standstill, the problem may not be your circumstances, and it may not be your capabilities. Perhaps the problem is that you are still using the same way of thinking that led you to a place you don't like, and you expect it to take you to a new place. That is impossible. If you want a different life, you have to become the person who sees the world in a different way. But an important question remains: how do you know if your way of thinking is actually improving? Is there a metric for that? In my opinion, yes. And this leads us to the next idea. Point 5. True intelligence is the ability to get what you want out of life. When most people hear the word intelligence, they immediately think of school grades, memorization speed, or solving equations. But there is another type of intelligence that is most important in life: the ability to turn your goals into reality. The businessman who learns from every failure, the writer who improves their style after every article, and the athlete who adjusts their training after every loss. All share one skill: they do not stop at mistakes. They use them to adjust their course. This is the essence of any successful system, whether it is a human, a machine, or even a system in nature. It defines a clear goal, it moves and takes action. It senses its current position. It adjusts its path based on what it learned. Then it repeats the cycle. Imagine a ship at sea. Does it travel in a straight line for the whole journey? Impossible. The waves push it left and right. To and right, but it arrives in the end. Because the captain is constantly correcting its course. The real difference between a practical, intelligent person and someone stuck in place shows in how they deal with mistakes. A person with low intelligence encounters a small bump, gives up immediately, and considers it proof of absolute failure. Person with true intelligence realizes that any problem can be solved with time, and every mistake is just new information, not a judgment on their worth. The problem is that we live within a prepackaged societal system, and it is pre-programmed for everyone. Go to school, get a job, get married, and retire a known and tragic path. And everyone follows it while knowing it doesn't work. To break this pattern and raise your level of practical intelligence, do not try to search for fanciful resources you don't possess today. Start with the simplest tool. Instead of asking yourself while struggling, "Why did this happen to me?" Ask a smarter question. What is this mistake trying to teach me right now? This question changes everything, because it turns failure from the end of the road into just a step on the path of constant adjustment. No one has all the resources they need at the beginning, and no one starts knowing everything. Every successful person you see today was once a beginner. The only difference is that they kept adjusting their course, while others stopped. Therefore, if you have a big goal that seems far away, do not ask yourself, "Can I reach it?" Instead, ask, "What is the next step?" Only then execute it. For great achievements are nothing but a collection of small, correct steps repeated intelligently for long enough. Point 6. Your new life could begin in just one day. The biggest changes didn't start when you read a new book or made a perfect plan. They began the moment you stopped running from yourself and sat alone to look at your life honestly, without any excuses. Most people spend their day replying to messages, scrolling through their phones and finishing tasks. Then they sleep to repeat the same day over again. They rarely stop to ask, "Where am I even going?" That is why, if you want real change, I invite you to set aside an entire day. Turn off your phone, get away from all distractions, grab a pen and paper, and treat this day as a meeting between you and the person you will be in 10 years. Answer these questions with complete honesty. What is the one thing that makes me most unsatisfied with my life? Today, write the truth and what truly bothers you. If my life continues in the same way for 5 years, what will I look like? Imagine your health, income, relationships, and mental state to see the price of not changing. If I start changing today, what could my life look like in 5 years? Paint a picture worth working for, of the person I need to become to reach this life that. Write down the traits first. More disciplined, courageous, responsible. Responsible, what habits don't fit this new identity? Staying up late, procrastination, phone addiction. Write them clearly. And is there just one habit that, if I commit to it for the next 30 days, will bring me closer to the person I want to be? Choose one and make it easy. Because consistency is more important than enthusiasm. And finally, ask yourself the hardest question. If nothing changes, who is responsible? This question may be painful, but it is the beginning of freedom. Outcome for the moment you stop blaming circumstances is the moment you regain your power to change. No one is coming to save your life, and there is no perfect timing. Every change starts with a decision, then turns into an action, then a habit, then an identity, and finally a whole life. You will not get a new life until you become a new person. Close this video now, and give yourself real time to answer these questions. Share in the comments. What idea changed your way of thinking the most in this video? If you find this content helps you build a better life step by step, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Understand it, right? Peace.